Good morning. My name is Ben McGee, and I'm currently serving as the president for the Tower Toastmasters Club. Some years ago, distinguished Toastmaster Agnes Obercourt announced to our club that we had earned the reputation of being the beast. Not so much lifting up Tower Toastmasters as much as the process that got us to that point. You see, after our first year of operation, from that point on, we earned President's Distinguished. Not because we're great and wonderful necessarily, but because we work the plan. We realized what was important, and that was to have a good meeting. We used scripts, templates, whatever it took to make sure that when guests came, they thought, these guys have it together. They're really organized. That was our goal. Today, my objective is to show you how project management and Toastmasters integrate. Professionally, I am a project manager. I was certified as a project management professional back in 1995. I've used project management tools throughout the years as I worked with Toastmasters, but I would like to start with a simple story. My Toastmasters career started in 2007. I was a member of the Data Center Toastmasters Club. I did ultimately earn the CC before retiring, but an interesting thing happened during that time. My wife also attended the meetings with me. She was really coming in support, not so much of me, but my grandson. You see, at the same time, she was homeschooling my grandson, and she wanted to expose him to business life, an office environment. One day at a meeting, my grandson got really excited. When the president called for rolls at the end of the meeting, my grandson raised his hand with excitement and said he wanted to be the Toastmaster of the day. My wife looked at me, her mouth dropped. She was in shock. I was too. You see, I had never heard that boy speak a complete sentence. It was only a word or two here and there, occasionally a short phrase. Now he was going to serve as the Toastmaster of the day, having to focus for a complete hour. Wow. The president of the club allowed it to happen to encourage him. He gave me a script to follow. I worked with my grandson, Anthony, day after day until finally the big day arrived. My grandson was a little nervous. I was a little apprehensive. My wife, on the other hand, was scared. She later told me she had a plan. During the meeting, she sat in the back of the room. Normally she didn't do that, but this particular day she was in the back of the room. She said if he messed up, she was going to duck and hide under the table. And if it really got bad, she was going to crawl out of the room because the back table was near the back door. She had a plan. But guys, my 11-year-old grandson, Anthony, nailed it. He did an awesome job of being the Toastmaster of the day. I tell you that story because it illustrates two significant points. Number one, the scripts are awesome. All you have to do is use them. Number 2 point, if an 11-year-old can serve as the Toastmaster of the day, Anybody can do it. That was a great experience. Now let's go ahead and focus on today's training. This will not be like your typical presidential Toastmasters training. My focus will be on project management tools that will help your club to be successful. Well, you probably are wondering, what types of projects does my Toastmasters club use? Great question. What about the club meeting? What about an open house, a contest, or even your executive board meeting? Well, what role then does the president serve? I would like to suggest, instead of being a CEO, the president becomes a program manager. And a program manager manages a group of projects, sometimes run by different project managers that all have a similar function or focus on a similar goal. I like to share a quotation from one of my favorite authors, James Clear. He says, "You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems." One of the great things about Toastmasters, especially as we integrate project management with it, is they have a tool belt full of great systems and tools. Today we'll cover a couple tools that will help your club to be the very best that it can be. Before we get into the use of these tools, I like to cover a few terms that might be helpful. Number one, what is a project? There are two characteristics that describe what a project is. First, a project is temporary, meaning it has a beginning and it has an ending. It has a well-defined scope. The second attribute is a project is unique. Now, let's pause for a second and make sure we're on the right track. Is the most significant meeting that we do, our club meeting, does it fit the qualifications of a project? Is it temporary? Yes, most certainly. It has a definite start and a definite end time. It starts on time and it ends on time. But you ask, is it unique? Well, most certainly it is. The club meeting is unique. Each week we'll have a different Toastmaster of the day. Different members will serve different roles in support of the meeting. There will always be different speakers at each meeting. You will rarely get the same combination of individuals serving in those same roles. For that reason, our weekly meeting is unique and is definitely a project. And of course, project management is the process of using the tools and techniques to manage the project. Does Toastmasters really consider our club meeting important? Most certainly it does. If you look at the training materials in the club leadership manual, each of the roles focuses on what each officer should do before the meeting, during the meeting, and then after the meeting. Hence, the common thread through all of those is the meeting. That's why it's important to have a great meeting every single time you have a meeting. Whether that meeting is weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly, it's important for that meeting to be great. Now, one of the things that I like to throw out at you at this point, while the meeting is important, and I've been dealing with a technical aspect of project management. You see, project management has a technical side and it also has a soft side. Now, the technical side we say are the hard skills. The soft skills are more the people, the finesse, the relationships. While it's important for a Toastmasters meeting to have good hard skills, technical activities like, does the meeting work well? Do you have great contests? Do you have good open house sessions? It's also important to develop an environment where members have fun. I really like the sitcom from back in the 70s, Cheers, where everybody knows your name. And that is the environment you want to capture in our Toastmasters Club meetings. Now let's go ahead and dive into another tool that is near and dear to a project manager, and that is the project schedule. My suggestion is, for those project activities that you do repetitively, create a template of all of the activities involved or the tasks involved in that project. That way, you're taking advantage of your lessons learned over the years. We're going to look at an open house as an example, but before we get there, I want to dissect it just a little bit. Projects conform to different project life cycles. For our example today, our project life cycle will consist of 4 elements. Initially, you will have the initiation phase. That's where you're organizing yourself, figuring out your scope, getting the team assigned. The second phase will be your planning phase. In the planning phase, you do exactly that. You'll break down all of the activities related to, in our example, an open house, like advertisement, food, speakers, the physical building. We'll break each one of those down into smaller chunks. And if each one of those chunks has to be subdivided into smaller tasks, then we'll go about and do that as well. After we've completed our planning phase, we'll jump into execution. And that's actually where you will launch the activity. The last phase is a closeout. And that's where we'll do activities like making sure we advertise the event that has just taken place, ensuring that our Vice President of Membership has information to follow up with our guest. Those are the types of things, along with documenting lessons learned, that would happen in a closeout phase. Those are our phases, but to help you remember them, I want you to think about your very favorite cream pie. That's right, a cream pie. Whatever it is. That cream pie will provide an acronym that will help us to remember those phases. C for cream, and then pie, P-I-E. Let's dissect that. That C stands for closeout. The P is planning. The I is the initiation phase. And E is the execution. At the end of the day, we want to execute. Rearrange those words, and you've got initiation, planning, execution, finally the closeout. Right now, we're going to give you an opportunity to practice working with this template. The meeting facilitator will instruct you all to divide into small groups. You will be given an example of the template, a printed copy. You will work through that template for 10 minutes, filling in the blanks. The elements that we'll have on our schedule include the task name, a start and end date, a responsible person, the status. In our example, there'll be 3 different statuses. It's either not started yet, it's in progress, or it's completed. Finally, resources needed. this is a critical element. Resources could be additional people, or it could be supplies, or it could be raw materials that are a part of that specific task. We're going to pause the video now and give you 10 minutes to work in your groups, to go through and in some cases make up start and finish dates. You'll assign it to fictitious persons responsible, but the part that I really want you to pay attention to will be the resources needed column. Do a little bit of brainstorming and think about the resources you'll need to carry out each specific task. Pause the video now. Thank you. Now, wasn't that fun? Some of you are probably wondering, how can I get my hands on that template? The meeting coordinator will email you a copy of an Excel workbook that will have that project planning template as well as the next template that we're going to talk about. Feel free to take those templates, embellish them for your own good. The next project management tool that we'll talk about will be the action item log. Now, the action item log will look a lot like the project planning template, but here's a subtle difference, and this is when you would use it. We all have executive board meetings, but have you ever been in a meeting where we only focus on the action items at hand, we work those action items, but occasionally an action item slips through the crack? It happens. My suggestion is that we make that action item log a part of your normal executive board meeting artifacts. Bring it to every meeting, but not just at the meetings. Check it between the meetings. If at all possible, post it on an online repository so that all board members can get access to it and track and provide updates on how their tasks are developing. Some of the essential components for that action item log would include the date the action item was opened. The second field would have a detailed description of what that item is. Next, the responsible person, the status. Now, we don't need quite the detail in the status that we had with the project planning template. As a matter of fact, with an action item log, all you really need is whether it's opened or closed. Using Microsoft Excel, you can use the lookup table so that all you do is click the cell, the drop down appears, and you select either value. Next, we will choose the date closed, and that's really optional, because if you note that the status is closed, then that's all well and good, but having the date closed provides a little bit extra detail around that particular task. And the last field that you might want will be a notes field. When we have action items, there are oftentimes details that we learn about the action item as we do research. Having a notes field gives you a place to capture those details so that you can always be in a learning mode. You can go back and look at certain action items and track the details about that action in the notes field. As a matter of fact, you can even date your notes if you choose. At this point, we've made an attempt to show you how Toastmasters integrates with project management. I started with the weekly or bi-weekly or monthly club meeting, understanding how the template that we use for our weekly meeting helps us to produce a good product. Then we transition to a point dealing with concepts that may be a little different, using a project planning tool as well as action item log. The tools are great and wonderful. We even applied through an exercise details about how to use the project planning tool with an open house. And as I commented earlier, it's important to master the hard skills, but to be successful as a Toastmaster club, you as a president really need to set the stage as a program manager. You want to create an environment where sometimes you want to go to a place where everybody knows your name. And they're always glad you came. You want to be where you can see that everybody's problems are the same. You want to go to a place where everybody knows your name. We want to create that environment in our Toastmasters Club where our members, our guests feel loved. They feel a part of the family. Ultimately, they feel and recognize that somebody knows their name. Thank you and have a great day.